It is so good to see you again, Ms. Barnes. Hi, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to come and meet with me. Yes, I have some things that I wanted to go over with you. Regarding Quirrell's strengths and areas of growth. Yeah, every child we work with has areas, of course, they excel in and areas that we wanted to continue to improve on. So what you're looking at here is Quirrell's portfolio. So a portfolio is the record of holding Krill's process of learning, what he learned and how, collection of various assessments and documents that reflects his progress. So the reason why we do these assessments and observe is so that we as educators can get to know Krill on a deeper level, understanding him as a unique individual. This way that we can identify his needs and his areas of strengths and needed areas of improvement so that our teaching and curriculum can reflect that. So let's get a look at and see what's inside Krill's portfolio. So first up, we have this frequency count chart. So with Krill being newer to the center, we wanted to get an idea of what areas of subjects interest him. So we use this frequency chart, which allowed us to observe how often a certain behavior happens or occurs. And using this, we were able to see that like you pointed out before, it was no surprise in our last meeting that you told us that Krill loves art, he loves to draw, and it came to no shock that he frequently would pick the art area or dramatic play area for his free time. We also noticed that he hardly ever went to our reading area, which says to us that we need to change more in our reading area to make it more appealing to Krill. Yes, we don't have to change anything in the art. He loves it already. I'm so glad to see that we are able to see what you see at home with his love of drawing. He's definitely a great artist. Um, so creative. Absolutely. So our other tool that we used is a cognitive checklist. So the frequency chart that we just saw was over 2 weeks. And this one, we just wanted to see in the first week his cognitive domain skills. What's cognitive domain? Exactly. Great question. So when referring to children's development, the word domain refers to specific aspects of growth and change. Some domains you might see, the typical ones are physical, cognitive, language, social, emotional. So specifically the cognitive domain involves how children think and explore and figure things out. That is a great way to put it. Children's ability to problem solve. That's awesome. So we use this checklist to get a broader idea on his skills relating to the cognitive domain, just as a starting point. So for what we saw, that he was able to pick out objects that are similar from a collection of objects. So we saw this when he took two pieces, toys of bread out of a basket of different food toys. He was showing interest in characteristics of living and non-living things in the environment. So when he was putting in our science area, we had water bin, and he took his hand and he just put it in the water bin different times, and then he'd take it out and he looked at his hand. Very curious about the way water moved. Yeah. By looking at his hand. So then we also saw him manipulating objects based on shape. So we had another activity where we had different liquids and containers in different sizes, and he took a large container and poured the liquid from there into a smaller container. The one that we have not seen this week was communicate in simple observations about the objects or events in the environment. This would have been seen if he would have done something like we're outside and he sees a rock and that he pointed at it and said small. Yeah, just simple observations about the world around him, exactly. So then we have our other checklist. This one's looking at the language and literacy. So the last time we talked, I know you were worried about Krill's language development, that you brought it to our attention. And we appreciate everything that you give us tip-wise. This is definitely a team effort. You see way more than we do at home. So we wanted to see if we could see it on our end too. So we used the checklist to get a at least starting point on his skills using the language domain. So what we saw here is that he's able to demonstrate an awareness of variations of sounds. So for an example, when he was near peers, occasionally he would whisper or had his volume lower. And then when he would move away, he'd get louder. So he was able to show a understanding of variety of single words. During art, no shocker, it was during art time. He was next to a peer and they were both drawing, and the peer asked him for a blue marker. So he picked one right up. He knew what blue was. He was able to pick it up and showcase it. So the ones that we were not able to see, at least during this week, was using 2 words to communicate together, exchanging in brief communication back and forth using simple words. Exactly. So we did, however, see Krill using vocalization, word-like sounds, and gestures in order to communicate instead of just single words. It was more like word-like sounds and gestures. So he's still getting his thoughts and needs across, which was the important thing here. An example of a conversation, here we go, perfect, that we documented that Krill had with another student. So this is when we are working at our table group. Krill was next to a little girl and she was having these different liquids in front of her, and she came up that it was strawberry and blueberry. So the teacher was making a comment to the girl saying, "Ooh, strawberry and blueberry sounds delicious. Thank you." Krill, being next to the little girl, was just making certain sounds as da da do in a sing-songy type voice. And then the girl in purple next to Krill says, "Do you want to try some of my new tea with strawberry supreme?" She says, "Try it." And Krill, using both his vocal and nonverbal gestures, he back away slightly and said, "No, no." Yes, so he was still able to get his boundaries, his likes, his dislikes across, at least using the words simple as no. Exactly. If you're going to have a word, no is a good one to have. Yes. All right, so then we have our anecdotal observations. This is another tool. We have so many, I know. So anecdotal tool is like really a snapshot of what's going on in a picture or video, a short story that really records significance on what's going on in that snapshot. Yes, you see these all the time in our classroom. Absolutely. Yes, we take these a lot. We like having the little visualization of what's going on as well as a little description. So in this, we're looking at Krill. He's holding a fake pear and he's walking towards the sink in our dramatic play area when the girl in purple bends down in front of him. And when she bends down, he says in a loud, high-pitched voice, "Hey, dad-ha-doo." So this is showcasing Krill's level in language domain, right? He's able to use the first words, sound, word-like sounds, and gestures to communicate. He was able to say, "Hey," "Hey, da-da-doo." So when at home, Krill is trying to speak, does he get frustrated if he's asked to repeat himself many times by you guys or your family? Mhm. So not much you or your husband, but his little sister. Is his little sister the same age? Oh, yeah, in our other class. Okay, perfect. So he gets frustrated when he has to repeat himself to the siblings that are around his age. No, thank you. That helps us out so much. Just trying to, because we don't want him to get frustrated, especially in our care and any care. We want him to make sure that he's getting heard and he's communicating in that exactly, that he's being heard, that his needs are getting met. Exactly. No, that is such a big help. Thank you for sharing that. So our next little snapshot. Um, so here we have Krill. He's grabbing onto a teapot and walks over to two other children sitting down and makes a pouring motion into the cups in front of each child. So when he's pouring into the cup of the little boy with the striped shirt, Krill says out loud, "Here, do." So um, he's in a smaller group setting at our dramatic play area. So this example shows his skill in the social emotional domain, which is more about building relationships. Um, he is interacting with his peers and playing side by side with them. And it also helps showcase his imagination and ability to use imaginative play by taking a teacup and pouring it into a cup, similar to how we do it at home or as adults do it. All right, our next snapshot, is this our last one? No. Okay, so there's 4. I know we have quite a bit. Our next anecdotal record. So Krill is taking a giant pipette. We were so glad we found this, and squeezed the top to let the water in, and then he'd take the pipette and place it over the toy with the gears and release the water to make the different gears spin. The children had so much fun with that day, absolutely. So this snapshot is showing Krill skill in the cognitive domain by being able to use, the pipette to create a specific result, in this case, making the gear spin. Yes, they look adorable, and those, I'm so glad that we had the blue covers as well. Oh, you wish you had them at home? Absolutely. The children, it could get messy, especially when we're experimenting with different water. Yes, especially with the, the pipettes. It can get messy. So this is our last anecdotal record. So same situation. So Krill is at the science area where he's using the water to make parts move. But Krill is standing on his own at the science station while he's manipulating the pipette in his hands. So this is showing his physical strength and the muscles that he's been building up. So he's able to manipulate objects with both of his hands, with no real issue by standing without having that support of holding on to, say, our water table. He's able to do it all by himself. All right. So then next we have our running records. So this is another tool that we use in order to observe. So a running record really is just us writing down everything that's happening in the order that it happens. So we wanted to observe Krill during the time of day where he gets more opportunities to communicate with his peers. So in this case, we did it during his free time when he was in the dramatic play area. So Krill is really just in the dramatic play area again in the pretend kitchen. Ooh, my bad, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to go back. We'll look at this later. Perfect. Technology. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so he was taking plastic green plates and going to a basket full of toys. And he's extending his hand and reaching into the basket of toys, and he takes out a green food type toy. and it got stuck. So he moved his right hand up and down in a fast manner until the brown toy falls. So then he picked up the plate again, and the green food toy, placed it on the plate, and then he walks over to the table with other children, and he places the plate in front of a girl with a blue dress. So then once he places the plate down, he turns toward the kitchen area again. And as he turns, directly in front of him on the floor is a boy in a dark blue shirt. So Krill then tries to sidestep to the right, but at the same time, the boy in the in the dark blue shirt did the same motions. Krill then places both of his hands on the child's back while babbling, and then he sidesteps to the right. And he's extending both hands up towards the sky in a weightlifting motion, and he's able to then get to the cabinet and goes down on his hands and knees to open it. And then while he's searching through, he's able to pick out some silverware and gets up from the cabinet, just using his knees. So then he reaches for another plate in the sink and picks it up, drops it. And then he goes to the toys and the blue basket and the food, and then he finds the green one again, very similar to the one he had at first, and then he puts it on the red plate in the sink. And then he takes the red plate in the sink and the silverware he took from the cabinet, and then he turns toward the table again. So then once he places the food, the plate and the food on the edge of the table, he then puts both of the silverware in each of his hands, and he goes to the girl closest to him, and he just extends out his hands with the silverware. He extends out his left one first. When the girl takes it, he does the same thing with his right. The girl's looking forward, and then Krill puts his hand closer to her face, and that's when she takes the silverware. And then he turns back, goes onto the cabinet on all fours, opens it up, take out more silverware, closes it, gets back up again, just with his knees, and then he goes and walks towards the table again, this time more to the middle where another child is sitting, and he extends both of his hands. Instead of just non-verbally putting his hands out, he goes and extends his left hand first, and the girl takes the silverware. He does the same thing with his right, and the girl takes it again. Yes, it was very, very sweet to see. So through this, we were able to see Krill display some fine motor skills. The fine motor skills being his ability to control small movements in his hands and fingers. So we saw this by grabbing the plates, the silverware, exactly, and then the other toys, food toys that he was handling. He's engaging in imaginative play when he's using the toys in meaningful ways. He's responding to other toddlers through vocalization and nonverbal communication. He's mostly using nonverbal communication to communicate, and has not started yet using a lot of single words. I said it right the first time. Single words, right? To in place of gestures or word-like sounds. He's also able to interact in simple ways with his peers. They're playing side by side again on the table, just at the dramatic age. Yeah, exactly. So our other running record. So we took this at the time of day. We wanted to see how Krill does with manipulating different sized of objects. So for this one, sorry again. So Krill is sitting down with a girl in purple to his right. So we're all at a table, and in front of Krill are different sized containers. One's a big mason jar with orange liquid inside. One's a medium pitcher, and then there's a small like test tube looking container, all on a white tray in front of him. So Krill takes the mason jar with the liquid and pours it inside the pitcher. He only does it about like a fourth of the way, filling up the pitcher, and then he stops. And then he picks up the pitcher, and then he takes the test tube, and then he tries to pour the test tube in. So while he's pouring the liquid into the test tube, he pours so much of it that it starts to spill over, and it spills onto his left pant leg. And he watches as it it falls, and then he stops. And then the teacher, who was there to observe, remarks, "Ooh, too much, kiddo, too much." And then he sets both of the containers down in front of the tray, and the teacher grabs a towel, offers it to him, and he takes the towel and wipes off his pant leg. Pats it at least just twice where it was spilled. And the teacher says, "Is it all over his pants?" And then the teacher says to Krill, "Is it wet? It will dry. It's okay." He then continues to make the same like pinching motion of just pinching his pants where it was still wet. He then takes the towel that he was using to dry it with, and he starts to to go to the left side of where all the containers were on the table, and then all of a sudden turns left with his whole body, knocking over one of the it was the pitcher just slightly. It had no liquid in it anymore, and then tosses the towel to the side. It was definitely, you remember this day? Yes, we informed you early on. Yes, you remember this incident that happened. Oh, he was talking about it. Yes, I'm sure it was very, very memorable. What did he say? Just wet. I love to hear it. Wet, and pointed at his pants. That's amazing. Sense of time, pointing at that it happened. It was already dry by then. Oh no, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So this scene in particular uh, is displaying, again, this one is more his fine motor skills, again, being able to grab onto the different containers, but he was able to follow the adults' guidance on the safety practices regarding the spill, making sure that he has the towel to clean everything up. But he was also able to adjust his behavior in response to the emotional expressions of people around him, whether it was the little girl who was right next to him or the teacher asking him all those questions and too much. Is it all over his pants? Is it still wet? It's okay. So I did want to ask you, so at home, how does Krill respond to challenging situations? Mhm. It's a lot of just when he's not being heard or asked to repeat certain situations, a lot of miscommunication. Absolutely. No, we just want to see exactly what we want to try and avoid and what we have to look for here as well as home. Again, you are our eyes and ears. You see Krill so much more. Exactly. You know so much more than we do. Uh, you are our partner in all this. So no, thank you for sharing that again. Okay, so this one, if you have any questions, please stop me at any time. This one can be a little confusing for our parents. This is our last observation tool that we used. We did this one more recently to really see if the skills that we saw in the first few months that Krill was with us, if we were able to see any changes. So we used this tool called the DRDP, which stands for Desired Results Developmental Profile pay no mind to the title. It's an assessment tool to really guide us on how we see children develop and progress in early childhood years. It's a great tool for parents to see, and caregivers to see where the children are at developmentally, where they are now, and where they can continue to grow. So this is just basic information of Krill and then the observer me who did the assessment. And here, so do you remember the domains we talked about earlier? Perfect. Exactly, yes. So this tool specifically focuses on the main domains of early childhood development. The ones that I focused on in this observation were the four major ones: physical, cognitive, language, and social emotional. So this page is an overview of the different measures we looked at within the domains. And within the domains, there's measures which break down each domain. So I want to say, for example, this is, again, just looking at the domains we're looking at. For example, this is the social emotional domain, and within the social emotional domain includes this measure, which is relationship and social interactions with peers. So when looking at this, there's another measure focusing mostly on just the relationships with adults. So each measure looks at a specific concept and point within that domain. Any questions before I move on? I know it can be difficult to understand at first. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Again, if there's anything I need to reiterate, any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So this one's social emotional development. Perfect. What's social emotional development really about? So it includes the child's experience, expressions, management of emotions, and ability to establish those relationships, positive relationships. So does that make more sense? Perfect. So the measure that we're looking at first, social emotional development first, is measure of relationships and social interactions with peers. So those relationships with peers. It's focusing on, the social relationship with peers. So within this measure, we said that Krill is at the exploring later level, which means that Krill is interacting in simple ways with familiar peers as they play side by side. For example, we've seen this happening when Krill is drawing with the peer at the easel in the art area. He's drawing on the paper when his peer says she wants to make a rainbow, and she starts to draw on the paper. Then she asks Krill, "Can I have a blue marker, please?" He picks up the blue marker and says, "Right here," and she responds with thanks. Krill then continues to make a similar shape on his own paper, such as the one his peer made, as his peer continues to draw on her own paper. So we're able to see that they're able to interact with each other and play side by side. Shouldn't be shocked. There's so many art examples. Exactly. So this is another measure that we looked at. This one is symbolic and sociodramatic play. Not read. So this one is really focusing on the skills that use objects to represent other objects or ideas and engage in symbolic play. So this measure, we said that Krill is at exploring earlier, which means that Krill can use or combine objects in functional and meaningful ways. So for example, when Krill was playing at our dramatic play area at the kitchen, he took 2 plates and put them on top of the stove like surface, and then turned the knob that was underneath the stove. And another time he's seen when he took 2 pieces of bread. Remember that in the earlier, he took 2 pieces of bread, and what he did with that, he put it in this toy toaster. It's so cute. Yeah, the toy toaster, and he pushed down the little, oh gosh, the little button that makes the toast go down. Yes. So then the next domain we're looking at is language and literacy. So again, language and literacy domain, meaning the developmental skills to communicate with others through language or gestures, and literacy meaning more curiosity of print and books and having more ability to write. Um, so the measure that we're looking at here is emergent in writing, focusing on Krill's ability to use scribble, marks, drawing, letters, characters, or words to represent meaning. So within the measure, we said that Krill is at exploring later level. So we're able to see that Krill is able to make scribble marks. For example, I have to use, again, the art. He's able to paint and draw using small and big movements. He's seen many times at the art area creating various types of art using scribbles and marks. Exactly. No chocolate there. All right. So then in the same measure for language and literacy, same domain. Great catch, yes, domain. And then the measure that we're looking at is reciprocal communication and conversation. So it's focusing on Krill's ability to engage in back and forth communication. So within the measure, we said that Krill is at exploring middle level, so which means he's able to briefly engage in back and forth communication using gestures or simple words. For example, we've seen in the documented conversation we had earlier, Krill was offered to try a drink that another child was making, and he said back to her, no, no. He went back, he leaned back a little more and said, no, no. He didn't do this. That was just me. Exactly. I'm just adding a little more. So our next domain is the cognitive development. So as mentioned earlier, we said that cognitive domain is involving how children think, explore, and figure things out. So the measure that we're looking at here is classification, focusing on Krill's ability to compare, match, and sort objects into groups according to their different attributes. So within this measure, we said Krill is at exploring later level. So he's able to select some objects that are similar from a collection of other objects. For example, we saw in the dramatic play area, he grabbed plates and picked out the same green food toy each time and placed it on a different plate. Then we also saw him playing with the toaster, right? He was able to take out the 2 pieces of bread from a basket of other food toys. Exactly. So then another measure from the cognitive domain is cause and effect. So it's focusing on the ability to observe, anticipate, reason between the relationships of cause and effect. So we said that Krill is at building earlier level, which means he's able to manipulate objects to cause a specific result. For example, as seen earlier, he was able to pour water into the wheel to make it spin. He used the little pipette, yeah. He was also exploring what could happen when he would pour liquid from one small container into a larger one and vice versa. Our next domain we're looking at here was, yes, physical, the physical domain. Really focuses on the physical growth, but also strengthening of the muscles, health and safety practices. And the measure that we're looking at here is fine motor manipulative skills. What is fine motor? Yes, fine motor again is those, remember, small movements in the hand and fingers. Exactly, like when he was holding the plates. Exactly. So it's really focusing on his increasing precision within the strength and coordination of using those muscles. So we said that Krill's at exploring later level. So he is able to use one or both hands when doing the same movements to manipulate objects. So we've seen this many examples. So one being Krill is able to scribble with one hand on various types of surfaces from paper to sidewalk with chalk. He also showcased this by being able to turn knobs on the pretend sink in our dramatic play area. And our last domain, still physical development, but our last measure is gross locomotor movement skills. So fine motor was the hands and fingers, while gross motors is the one that requires the whole body, the large muscles that we use in everyday functions such as standing and walking. So this measure is focusing on the skills such as rolling, crawling, cruising, walking, running, jumping, galloping, all those big movements. And we said that Krill is at the exploring later level. He's able to coordinate basic movements in an upright position without using any support. For example, when Krill was grabbing different toys from under the pretend sink in the dramatic play area, Krill had to get down on all hands and knees. And when he had toys in his hands, he was able to stand up without using any support. He's very talented. I have trouble doing that. Perfect. Okay, so this is just a summary of his strengths that stood out and then areas of growth. So the strengths that stood out, he is very creative and artistic. As you said and told us beforehand, he loves doing everything, arts, crafts, drawing, painting. He did have fantastic results with his ability to anticipate and reason between cause and effect, that cognitive skills. It was great to see. He is also very efficient with using his different muscles, coordinating himself, making sure he's able to stand up without having to use anything for support. And then the area of growth, which again is the one that you said was the one that worried you the most, which is the main reason why we focused a lot about it today in our observations. And we just wanted to see more variety of single words and going from nonverbal communication, which he's been typically using, to using more single words in order to communicate with his peers and adults. But he is such a pleasure to have in this classroom. He is great at listening to directions and making sure he puts things away. He does that at home too. Oh, he's such a joy. It makes my life easier. I'm sure it makes your life easier too. Yes, absolutely. I have you to thank for that. Having a good cleanup routine at home helps us so much here in the classroom. You have no idea. So here are some ideas that I came up with in order to try and work on that, the communication skills that we were talking about. But first, I wanted to ask you, I know that communication was something that you were worried about, but regarding Krill's development and the way that we go about it, what is your biggest priority? So right now it's getting that language up. Perfect, because your priority is our priority. We want to make sure exactly that we're in alignment. Absolutely. I'm glad you said so, because these modifications are to help Krill build those language skills up. Again, going from the nonverbal communication more to using those single words. First one, this one we had an idea of from the beginning, how we he did not seem to want to go to our library at all. um, I thought of maybe bringing a book from home that relates to your family. And I was so happy to hear that he loves the books at your guys' house. Um, you have been such a big help already. And I was thinking having a little bit of home or a part of what shows your guys' culture and your family dynamic might make him more interested in the books at school. We want him to know and feel like he's represented in our classroom. And we want to make sure that you guys are represented in our classroom. Um, so we thought that maybe getting a recommendation from you guys on the different books that you guys have at home, um, or just one of his favorites that really give a good look at his family and what represents you guys as family. That would be perfect. Yes. No, thank you so much. It is such a big help when the parents are willing to work with us and vice versa. It is such a big help with making sure that we're all in alignment on what's going on. No, that would be such a big help. I look forward to the different books that you guys have. I'm so excited. So another idea is something that I can do and other teachers in our classroom that can do as well when during art time, since that is his favorite, taking opportunity to ask more open-ended questions during this time. There's so many questions and things, topics to talk about, from colors, shapes, and textures. So we thought of asking questions such as like, why is the sky gray in this picture? How do we use a paintbrush? And just making sure there's enough time for him to answer it, but using the things that he's interested in and hoping that that will make him more willing and interested in vocalizing. Exactly. Instead of just always relying on gestures. Yes, absolutely. I was going to say that as well. Yes, if you would use these when he's, well, anytime, but specifically when he's doing art, because seems to be his favorite thing right now. When he's drawing, making his pictures, asking these open-ended questions at home and seeing how he reacts to it. And yes, please keep me updated and we will do the same here. And then our last one, planning for more small group time. So based on all of the previous observations that we talked about, Krill had a tendency to be more vocal with peers when there was 3 or less children. So seeing that, we want to make sure on our end that we give him the opportunities to vocalize and start using his vocabulary more by changing the curriculum and planning for more small group time. And lastly, these are resources for you specifically. And I know you said that you were worried about Krill's language development. And we just wanted to make sure that he had all the support he needs. So one of the things that I recommend, because this is the second time you brought up your worry for Quill's development and language. Yeah, you're worried that he's getting behind his other classmates. Exactly. So due to this, I thought it might be good to get some help from his doctor and get some guidance about his speech. Yeah, we could get all the help we can get all the help we can get, because the doctor could first see what's going on and letting us know on their end what they think of Pearl's speech, but they could also connect us with the early intervention program to get a better picture of what's going on. So I know plenty of other children's who get some extra support from this program called early intervention. So it's a group that provides guidance and supports different areas of development, such as speech. So if Krill eligible, he could get services both here and at home. They could give us some tips on how we can better help him get him to use his words. Tips, suggestions, absolutely. Yeah, and going to the doctor might feel more comfortable and natural than going to an outside resource. Because of course, you know the doctor, Krill knows the doctor. That is what I've been hearing, that a lot of other parents have been having a lot of trouble getting in to see their doctor during this time. COVID and everything, it's still a lot more difficult. So that is why I provided another resource. If at first the doctor's, right, it's too far out to get an appointment or trying to see him, there are many other places near you that offer services that do the same thing. So another place, so you said you drive to Paris a lot with Krill, so we got one near Paris. This is SELPA. It also offers the screenings trying to see what levels of Krill's at for speech, and seeing based off of that level if they can offer us more tips and suggestions on what to do with him at home and here on how to improve his level of speech. And if need be, they also have extra support and guidance. And I provided all of the information here. Yes, and I sent you that letter. It has this information in it as well. The link to the website, their phone number, website, the actual building, so that you can go in there and take a look and just ask those questions. So if, again, the doctor doesn't work, this is always a second best. If any questions about anything that I said, any other worries? No, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure having Krill in my classroom, and you have been such a big help with letting me get to know Krill and you guys as a family, especially with you guys being so new, helping me provide ways that can help Krill develop here in the classroom. So until next time, keep me updated again regarding getting a hold of the doctor and asking those open-ended questions and see how they work at home. But I will see you next time, same place, same time. All right, bye, thank you.